Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu News Analysis by Bajirao IAS Academy. In this session, we will discuss all important and relevant news articles, and they are given in the Hindu newspaper. Okay, so before discussing all these articles, I have given you a practice question, right? So, the question is the Constitution 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992, which aims at promoting the Panchayati Raj institutions in the country, provide for which of the following? Statement 1, Constitution of District Planning Committees. Statement 2, State Election Commission to conduct all Panchayat elections. Statement 3, Establishment of a State Finance Commission. And select the correct answer and also comment the correct answer in the comment section. So this is practice question for tomorrow, and given here the list of important news articles for today's discussion. So the first article is India gets new parliament house, prime minister says it's a symbol of aspirations. We all know that as part of the central vista dome project, the central government has constructed a new parliament building, and it is important to understand why there is a need to construct a new parliament building and what are the features of this parliament building. And second important editorial is with respect to the menstrual health of women, how it is a public health issue, and how the stigma still attached to the menstrual health of women. Statement 3, why is the 1.5 degree Celsius target is very critical. This we need to understand in the backdrop of growing climate change and the global warming concerns. And the fourth article is from the prevalence in 8 states to in 2000 dengue now a nationwide infection. So this is with respect to dengue virus, right? So this has become a widespread phenomenon throughout the country. Earlier it was confined to the tropical areas, tropical states. Like it was confined to 8 states only. Now it has spread to across India, and this also symbolizes or signifies the growing threats of climate change and global warming, and emergence of new threats. And the last article is a shrinking snow cover continues to haunt Himachal Pradesh. So this is also because of rising levels of pollution, increasing global warming levels. There has been a significant shrinking of snow cover in Himachal Pradesh. In fact, the snow cover feeds several rivers, and shrinking of the snow cover would put a severe stress constraint on these glaciers, right? So the first article is with respect to the menstrual health and how it is a public health issue, right? So India, in fact, has been forefront runner. Okay, it is a front runner in action on menstrual hygiene. So, in fact, various governments, NGOs, and private sector have all played a very crucial and a very active role in promoting the menstrual hygiene. Okay, so they have taken several steps in spreading awareness regarding the menstrual hygiene and also providing menstrual products to women across different segments. However, this focus has been very often mostly confined to the rural areas, considering that the urban areas already have a significant amount of awareness regarding the menstrual hygiene. However, it is not true, right? Because in both urban areas and rural areas also there is a significant lack of awareness among the people about the menstrual hygiene, and that has been leading to women face several problems, whether it is in schools, educational institutions, or anywhere. Okay, so India's large and rapidly growing urban population also calls out for attention. So because of disproportionate attention being given to rural areas when it comes to menstrual health and menstrual hygiene, the urban populations have also been calling for a significant amount of attention. And field insights and research on menstrual hygiene in a certain group of urban dwellers, it shows that a whole range of limitations, and those limitations have been affecting the menstrual hygiene of people living in those areas. Okay, so in order to understand these periods, uh, you know periods is still limited among people, whether it is men, women. So therefore, there is a lack of understanding about the menstrual hygiene and the periods, and this is particularly a concern among the low income groups, right? So this is particularly a concern among the low income groups, because these low income groups very often lack access to basic services, whether it is toilets, sanitation, housing. So therefore they have to face all these problems because of the limited understanding of the periods. While we need to understand, there are several urban homes as part of the Swachh Bharat mission. Okay, as part of the Swachh Bharat mission, we have developed toilets. Okay, I mean, construction of toilets has taken place in a huge way. So many urban homes have toilets, and residents of low income slums, pavement dwellers, and some educational institutions and workplace still do not have these toilet facilities. And they do not have the toilet facility, and they also lack the accessible, safe and clean and convenient environment, whether it is the workplace, whether it is an educational institution, whether for people who do not lack housing. So therefore, for all of those women who belong to these categories, menstrual hygiene is still a significant problem. And there are few areas like few poor awareness and stigma attached to the menstrual hygiene or periods, and public shame, limited access to products, lack of personal hygiene, and poor toilet and water facilities. So they are some of the difficulties um, which have been significantly impacting the woman. Okay, so particularly the poor woman, and this has been leading to anxiety, discomfort, and infections, along with long term health related problems among women. Okay, so this is particularly because of lack of hygiene and lack of proper understanding on the periods. Now menstrual waste management is also very important, because menstrual waste, if not managed properly, that would create other multiplier effect like problems. Okay, so therefore this is a looming concern. And even growing use of disposable sanitary pads uh, is also a cause of concern, because there has been concerted efforts from various organizations, government, NGOs, civil society, to increase awareness about the sanitary napkins, sanitary pads among the women. So because of this reason, there is a need to improve the menstrual waste management and ensure the menstrual hygiene as well. Okay, so there will be a significant or disproportionate increase in the disposable sanitary pads. So when disposable sanitary pads are increasing, then we need to take measures to manage them in a safe manner. However, doable actions, they can certainly help improve the menstrual health, especially in urban India. Okay, so those include the low income groups and public spaces. Several actions like improving awareness and also focusing on the community behavior in order to minimize stigma and shame being attached to periods and unhygienic environments. So etc. could reduce the ill effects of this shame. And awareness about the periods is actually a key pillar in the action. Okay, so therefore there is a need for awareness about the menstrual hygiene. Okay, so this must be continued, and along with efforts to address harmful social and gender norms, right? And menstrual products, both reusable and disposable, they must be more available through various access channels. Okay, so they should be available across various access channels, and these channels include retail outlets, social enterprises, government schemes, and various other NGOs, right? So the female friendly community and public toilets are gaining popularity. So they have been gaining a huge popularity. For example, she toilets are being developed in the state of Telangana and Tamil Nadu, and there's also a concept of pink toilets, and they are developed in the state of Delhi. Okay, so these she toilets and pink toilets are envisioned to, or they ensure safe, private, clean facilities with essential amenities needed to manage these periods. Okay, so closing gaps, there are certain gaps and those gaps need to be closed down in order to ensure that the menstrual hygiene and sanitation is actually not considered as a stigma in the society, either it is a rural India or urban India. Now some prominent gaps, they remain unaddressed. Okay, so what are those gaps? And those gaps particularly seen in urban areas, so they include reaching people living in unregistered slums, pavements, and refugee camps and other vulnerable conditions in urban areas. See, generally these people do not have access to the sanitation, housing, other basic facilities. So therefore there is a need to reach out to these people and enhance their awareness about the menstrual hygiene. And secondly, there are various work sites. Work sites include formal work sites and informal work sites, and these work sites need to cater to the menstrual needs of women who generally work. Okay, so they have to cater to the menstrual needs of women, right? So support should also continue for innovations in menstrual waste management, and that are safe, effective, and scalable works. So this is all about the menstrual hygiene, and focus should be on urban areas as well, along with the rural areas, so that a woman could be able to live a decent and a dignified life. So this article is particularly very important for both paper 2 and paper paper 2 and paper 1 of UPSC mains. Okay, so the next article is with respect to the climate change and growing increasing temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Right. So while discussing these climate change and global warming concerns, we very often come across the terms like limiting temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius and limiting temperature to 2 degree Celsius. Okay, so there were United Nations Framework Convention on climate change, right? So the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, there were several conferences being held under the auspices of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. However, all the countries are determined to limit the temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius by 20, this century, okay, by the end of the 21st century. However, However, please understand, if possible, the temperatures should be reduced to 1.5 degree Celsius, even though it is still unachievable, because the current rate of emissions and the current rate of global warming, it is likely that we would breach the 2 degree Celsius uh, uh, you know bracket by the 2070. Okay, so therefore, if we breach the 2 degrees Celsius bracket by 2070, that would have a significant climate consequences, whether it is intense cyclones, El Nino phenomenons like El Nino, heat waves, forest fires, and extinction of species, biodiversity losses. So water crisis and water shortages, all these factors can be safely attributed to the rising temperatures, and there is a probability that the global temperatures would breach the 2 degrees Celsius maximum temperature. Now, in this context, we need to understand why 1.5 degrees Celsius target is critical, not just for the developing countries, but also the island nation countries. Okay, island nation countries. In this context, please understand the 1.5 degrees Celsius target is actually a global climate target, and this global climate target aims at limiting the global warming to said level by 2100. If possible, we need to limit the global climate warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels to by the 2100. And this target has been fixed to prevent planet from slipping into the further climate crisis. The further climate crisis include increasing floods, droughts, biodiversity losses, extinction of species. We have already discussed about that. And this target, if we able to achieve this target, and that will help prevent the planet from slipping into another climate crisis. However, in the year 2010, there was a Concon summit, similar to the lines of COP uh, 21st summit. Okay, COP 21 summit that was held in Paris. There was a Cancun summit, COP 16. And in the Concon summit, countries have agreed to limit their global average warming by 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so these countries have agreed to limit the global warming by 2 degrees Celsius. However, in the year 2015, there was a Paris Agreement. Okay, so that is otherwise called as a COP21 summit. So in this Paris Agreement, countries have pledged to limit their average temperature rise to below 2 degree. Okay, so countries have also committed to reduce the temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius, while they also actively aiming at reducing the temperatures or limiting the temperature rise to just 1.5 degree above the pre-industrial levels. Okay, so now what understand what is the uh, why is the 1.5 degree target is very critical for us, why it is very important for us. So it is particularly very important and critical for us because India, not just India, but all the world has been experiencing extreme weather events, right? So heat waves, intense weather phenomenon like cyclones and droughts, floods, etc. The anthropogenic activities would have already caused around 1 degree of warming across the globe. And it is very likely that this 1.5 degrees Celsius we reach between the years 2030 to 2052 if we continue to emit at the current rate. Okay, so now the frequent and intense heat wave and droughts, heavy precipitation, an additional 10 centimeter rise in sea level are some of the attributes of this rising temperatures. And this will lead to the destruction of ecosystems. And once the ecosystems are being destroyed and the negative effects being caused by the climate change, they are mostly irreversible. And the changes can also be witnessed in the 2 degree level, right? And why are we missing the targets? So we have ambitious targets of limiting temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius and 2 degrees Celsius. Now why are we actually missing these targets, why we are not able to achieve those targets? So the developed countries are actually responsible for the major chunk of greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so the developed countries, not the developing countries, but the developed countries, which are mostly responsible for the major chunk of greenhouse gases. So the developed the countries are also expected to assume more responsibility, and they also implement the climate action and related measures. However, they are taking a back step. Okay, so they are on a back foot while taking up responsibility and implementing the climate action, and they also not meeting their climate commitments more proactively. And it is very important because they have the technology and they have the financial resources, but when it comes to taking up the responsibility and fulfilling their commitments, they are on the back foot. So the pandemic has effectively pushed the world into a socio-economic crisis. Okay, so this has pushed the world into a socio-economic crisis. So in this crisis, most cases there is a little or no consideration for building back in a sustainable manner. So these countries have not been considering building back in a sustainable manner. So the Ukraine conflict has further added to the voice and sparked an energy crisis, and that has been threatening the climate goals. Recently, the pandemic was, that has created the supply chain disruptions, and that has also impacted the sustainable development goals because poverty alleviation is a goal of the sustainable development goal, right? So because of the pandemic, several people were pushed back into the poverty. Okay, the chronic cycle of poverty, they were pushed back into the chronic cycle of poverty. And due to pandemic, we will not be able to achieve some of the sustainable development goals. Okay, so but due to lockdowns, there is some positive effect also, whether it is a regeneration of forests and reducing levels of pollution, but it has significantly impacted the levels of poverty. Several people were pushed back into the poverty. And the second goal, that is end hunger in all its forms, something like that. So that was also uh, we will not be able to achieve the second goal as well. But a recent crisis in Ukraine, okay, so this crisis has resulted in food security issues, energy security issues, and also the fertilizer security. Okay, fertilizer like issues. And India, as a leader of global South, has rightly taken up these issues at several international forums, right from G20 to other organizations like United Nations. Okay, now, the climate risks and hazards impact human population disproportionately. The ecosystem depending on exposure, vulnerability, and adaptive capacities of the communities. Communities' adaptive capacities are very important to cope up with the climate change. However, it has further exacerbated the food security issues, displacement of people, and deaths which are actually being taking place in various parts of the world. Right. So the climate change has been affecting the crop yield negatively, and it also has risks posed by agricultural pests and diseases, and that has been increasing over the past few years. So there has been a significant increase in the pests and diseases which have been affecting the crops. For example, if you ask me, the locust, okay, the locust. So earlier locusts were primarily limited to the African continent, but we have seen that these locusts spread to the Western India, almost to the Western India. So this is because the climate which is suitable for the thriving of locusts is generally shifting its patterns, and it is almost reached to western parts of our country. And when there has been an increasing locust attack, they attack the crops, the standing crop, and that would create significant food security related issues. However, there are several countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Afghanistan. These are poor countries and the underdeveloped countries. So these countries have been facing acute food shortages. Either this is primarily attributed to the climate change and the global warming, coupled with several other factors that has been resulting in food shortages, malnutrition, hunger, and demanding urgent need for assistance from various aspects. Okay, so the food insecurity in these countries is due to the complex interaction of climate conditions with that of other factors. Okay, so the droughts, cyclones, political and economic instability. So apart from the climate change, coupled with these factors have been leading to the turmoil and the conflict in all these countries. Okay, so according to the climate change performance index 2023, the climate change performance index is being published by German watch. Okay, just remember this is published by German watch. So according to the climate change performance index, India ranked 8th with high performance after Denmark, Sweden, Chile, and Morocco. So India's performance is very high compared to several other countries. Despite being a developing country, despite being having several growth aspirations, developmental aspirations, India has been faring better than several other developed countries. Okay, so being an emerging economy with the developmental needs, and India has been attempting to balance its developmental needs with the ongoing climate action. So this has been taking place both at the domestic level and also at the international level, right? So the domestic measures which India has already taken to act on climate change include the green hydrogen mission, so which we have already discussed several times, and also introduction of green bonds. The government has also introduced the green bonds. So what is the objective of green bonds? With the green bonds, the private sector and the government would be able to raise funds to green projects. Okay, so raise funds, and these funds are specifically used for financing of green projects. Okay, for example, renewable energy projects, waste management, and hydroelectricity, etc. So such projects would be built by the renewable energy. Okay, so India is performing fairly well despite contributing to only a minuscule of cumulative greenhouse gas emissions. So at the international level also, India has set up several organizations like International Solar Alliance and also Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So these organizations have been very effective, uh, and they also shows India's commitment towards the climate goals and the climate commitments. Okay, so they can prove to be a responsible climate player, And these organizations proves that India is a responsible climate player, and keeping in mind that it has a long way to go in a very little time, right? So India has also, if you remember, India announced the Panchamrit commitments. India announced the Panchamrit commitments. So in as part of the Panchamrit commitments, in Glasgow summit, okay, in Glasgow summit, India declared that it would become a carbon neutral or net zero emission by the year 2070. So therefore, in this context, it is very important and significant that India is a major climate actor. Uh, Even when the countries which are historically responsible for the emissions, they are not taking up the those responsibilities, and they are not fulfilling the commitments, but India has been doing this. Now, the next article is with respect to the shrinking of snow cover continues to haunt Himachal Pradesh. So, Himachal Pradesh is a northern state, and that is located in the Himalayan mountain ranges. And so, therefore, there has been a continuous shrinking in snow cover. So, this is also attributed to climate change and global warming. Okay, climate change and global warming. So there has been a continuous shrinking of the snow. Um, if we understand, there has been a gradual reduction in snow cover in ecologically fragile Himachal Pradesh, and that continues to haunt the hill states. Because, see, the consequences of shrinking snow cover include water shortages and also the glacial lake outflows and the cloud burst. There are several factors which are being associated with the shrinking of snow cover, and the shrinking of snow cover makes the fragile Himachal Pradesh or the fragile region of Himalayas more worse. Okay, so if you look at the data in the past decade, Himachal Pradesh has been witnessing an erratic, inconsistent, and decreasing trend in snowfall. Okay, so there has been inconsistent and decreasing trend in overall snowfall, and uh, uh, that also coupled with shift in pattern and precipitation within the state. Okay, so the precipitation is not rainfall but precipitation of snow. So there has also been a shift in the precipitation and pattern of snow. Himachal Pradesh receives the winter precipitation in the form of snow in the higher altitudes. Okay, there are several higher altitudes, and those higher altitudes, it receives the winter precipitation. So about the one third of the global geographical area of the state remains under thick snow cover during the winter season. Okay, so most of the major rivers like Chenab River, Bias River, Parvati River, Baspa, Spiti, Ravi, Sutlej. So these are some of the major rivers, and all these rivers are sourced from the Himachal Pradesh and snow regions. So they derive the water from the snow cover. Okay, so their perennial tributaries are originating from Himalayas. So they depend on seasonal snow cover for their discharge and dependability. So therefore, there has been a reducing snow cover, and that has been significantly impacting the overall snow cover in the state of Himachal Pradesh, right? So apart from this, glaciers in Himalayas have been reported to be retreating. So they are fast retreating in recent past because of the global warming and concerns like climate change and excessive pollution because of emissions, etc. So glaciers in the Himalayas have been reported to be retreating, and these retreating glaciers depleting snow cover, and they also leading to the glacial lake outflows. Okay, glacial lake outflows, and they are immediate concern in the mountain environment. So that would significantly lead to the floods. Okay, significantly leads to floods across these Himalayan regions. And decrease in snow cover or snow accumulation and a great glacial retreat might also lead to acute water shortages in future as well. So there will be acute water shortages in future as well because of decreasing snow accumulation and glacial retreats. So this is all about the article and the consequences of declining snow cover in the state of Himachal Pradesh. So the next article is that India gets its new parliament house, and Prime Minister of India says it's a symbol of aspirations of the people. Okay, so it represents the symbol of aspirations of people of various segments, right? So we all know that the new parliament building was constituted as part of the Central Vista Dome project, and this was to renovate the old parliament building, because the old parliament building was inadequate for accommodating all the members while holding a budget session. Okay, so while holding a budget session, joint session, and even during the presidential address to the house. So therefore, since it is inadequate, and it is an old building, and secondly, in order to meet the energy efficiency norms, okay, energy efficiency norms, and in order to represent India's traditions, India's culture in overall architecture, so the new parliament building has been constructed. Okay, so in order to achieve all these objectives, a new parliament building is being constructed, right? So Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi has inaugurated the new Parliament House. So this was also a bone of contention, because uh, several opposition parties have not attended the inauguration ceremony, because the government has not invited President Draupadi Murmu for the inauguration ceremony. So therefore, they have not attended the inauguration ceremony. Okay, so the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has stressed on the next 25 years. Okay, next 25 years, and he also effectively stressed on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is self-reliance. So therefore, uh, this is all about the parliament building, and we have also discussed about the Sengol. Okay, so Sengol is a symbol of transfer of power, and this was a practice that was followed during the Chola times, and that was also had the mention in the Sangam period. Okay, Sangam period. So therefore, this Sengol is also very important for the examination point of view, right? So this was an article when Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid a foundation stone, but the Parliament building already completed. So the new Parliament building would be to witness to the making of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, according to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the new Parliament building will have a capacity of around 1,200 members. Okay, so this is the overall seating capacity of the new Parliament, and 55% more than the current strength. So this 12,000, so this has also designed and constructed keeping in mind the future needs of India's democracy and India's parliament. So therefore, it is 55% more than the current strength of our parliament. So apart from this, the building will also have a grand uh, constitution hall. Okay, so this grand constitution hall will showcase India's democratic credentials and democratic heritage. Apart from this, a new lounge for MPs has also been facilitated in new parliament, and apart from the above mentioned features, it also has a library, committee rooms, dining areas, and parking spaces. Now we need to understand about a few things about the old parliament building also. So the parliament house that was designed by Edwin Lutyens and Herbert Baker. So please remember these names, Herbert Lutyens and Herbert Baker. So design of the parliament, the old parliament building, not new parliament building, so it was built with the indigenous materials and by Indian labor. So right, so even though the designers were the foreigners, but it was built with indigenous materials, and indigenous labor built this. And the architecture of the building bears a close imprint to the overall Indian tradition. So the layout of the foundation of both inside and outside the building use an Indian symbols. Okay, so these symbols like chajjas and the varied forms of jali, a marbula reminds us of story of craftsmanship, and that was displayed in ancient monuments and memorials. Some of the features of the old parliament building include the thick band around the parliament, and there were huge jalis also, right? And the Buddhist dome over the top of the building, parliament building. In fact, you can see those domes in Supreme Court building also. So therefore, this is a Buddhist dome, and there was a thick band and jalis, and so this is all about the new parliament building and some of the features of the old parliament building. Now the next article is about the prevalence of dengue. Okay, the dengue disease. So earlier dengue was limited to 8 states. Okay, that was limited to 8 states only, but now it spreads throughout the country. In order to spread dengue, there should be, a good climatic conditions, a favorable climatic conditions. Tropical climates are mostly favorable for the spread of dengue disease. However, due to the climate change concerns and the increasing temperatures, these disease spreading mosquitoes have also been shifting to the low temperature regions, and this is evident from the fact that recently Ladakh has also seen the dengue cases. Okay, Ladakh has also experienced dengue cases in the year 2022. So, according to some data, this is prevalent in 8 states only earlier, but now it has its footprint in almost all states across India. Okay, so in fact, the World Health Organization also says that at least half of the world population is at risk because of this dengue disease, right? Now, what is a dengue? Dengue is a mosquito-borne viral disease, and it spreads from the bite of an infected mosquito, and the mosquito is Aedes aegypti. So there are different mosquitoes. So the chikungunya, dengue, and Japanese encephalitis. So these mosquitoes names, please also remember the mosquitoes names. Aedes aegypti, and that spreads dengue disease, and it does not spread from human to human. Okay, so this is not contagious like human to human transmission. However, a mosquito bite an infected individual and then bite the other individual, and then the dengue disease spreads from one person to the other person. Now, dengue mosquitoes bite during the daytime, not at the night time, but they bite during daytime, and the highest biting intensity is about 2 hours after the sunrise and before the sunset. Okay, so before sunset and 2 hours after the sunrise, so there was a highest biting intensity of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. However, for dengue disease, there is no vaccine and no cure for dengue disease. So there are several preventive measures that could be taken. The preventive measures include protecting oneself from mosquito bites, using mosquito nets while sleeping and during the day. So wear full sleeve clothes, use mosquito repellents in case of an area where there is a significant or high number of mosquitoes, and also prevent mosquitoes from breeding. Drain out stored water regularly. If water is stored and there is a need to drain out the stored water regularly. So control by fogging and during the outbreaks is also essential and very important, right? So if you look at some of the statistics and data related to dengue disease in India and world, each year close to 50 million dengue infections get reported globally. Okay, across the globe, around 50 million dengue infections get reported. Out of these, 70% of the dengue cases are reported alone in Asia because of the favorable climatic conditions. So India contributes anywhere between 34 to 40 percentage of dengue cases in Asia, right? So a University of Oxford study says that India has a maximum number of dengue cases in the world. So the first dengue cases that was reported in India way back in the year 1946. So after that there was a major outbreak for 2 decades. Okay, so there was no major outbreak after the 1946 outbreak, and the study indicated that 33 million dengue cases were reported in India as of now. Right now, please understand the first major epidemic occurred that was occurred in the state of Kerala in the year 1963. So there is no vaccine and there no cure for the dengue disease, but some precautionary and preventive methods could be followed. So keep home and environment surroundings very clean, and there is a need to remove stagnant water from containers, dumped tires, and air coolers. Thirdly, use mosquito repellents and mediated screens and coils and sprays, and observe a dry day once a week. Okay, so dry day means not using water or using water in a limited way, so that could also prevent the spread of these mosquito, and keep drains well maintained and they repair the chokes. So if a drain is choked, then the water will stagnate. Now stagnant water also favors the they also work like a a breeding ground for those mosquitoes. There is a need to avoid self-medication and consult the general practitioner. So if the high fever persists for more than 48 hours. Okay, so this is all about the mosquito disease and its growing prevalence. And you have to remember that mosquito has no vaccine and no cure, but there were efforts from the Indian pharmaceutical agencies to have a vaccine. Okay, so because due to the increasing temperatures across the globe and particularly in India, there will be further and more wide prevalence of the dengue disease across the country. Okay, so this is all about the important article that were given in the Hindu newspaper, right? So please subscribe to Bajirao IAS Academy YouTube channel and also hit the bell icon, and please like the video. Okay, so thank you.